We're only 4 days away from game day where the Colts are at home to play the Jaguars. And I want to look at the matchups going into this game. And for this video, we're going to be looking at the Jaguars defense and the Colts offense and seeing how that matchup will go in this game. Okay, because this is week one, when you start looking at the matchup, you have to look at last year and see what these teams did against each other, especially with them being in the division, being familiar with each other. And in the first matchup of the season, the Colts went into Jacksonville and lost that game 24-0 on September 18th, 2022. And that Jaguars defense held the Colts offense to 218 total yards and 4.5 yards per play. And realistically, the Colts defense played well in that game also. It was just a lot of turnovers that happened in that game. And, last year's offense was completely inept. And so that one was 24-0. Got absolutely dominated in Jacksonville once again. But then the game in Indy, and this game happened on October 16th of last year. And at this point, the Colts were 3-2-1 and the Jaguars were 2-4. All right, for how the season ended up for both these teams, kind of crazy that this is where we were at this point. The Colts won the second game 34-27. And this is a game where the Jaguars defense basically forced the Colts into a position where they had to pass the ball, and they ended up passing 58 times, and they only ran the ball 16 times for an average of less than 3 yards per carry. So, the Jaguars defense, what we can expect coming into 2023, transitioning from that, going into 2023, what we can expect is that this Jaguars defense under defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell is going to continue to attack. That's what they do. It's a 3-4 defense with multiple fronts. So what we're going to see is, a lot of that 3-4 scheme, but also when it's talking about multiple fronts. If you're not sure what that means, still learning the game. If you're not sure what it means when people say multiple fronts, it's that even though it's a 3-4 defense, when they come out, they have different personnel packages that look like a 3-4 or look like a nickel, right? Putting the extra corner in, taking a linebacker off. But even in that 3-4 front, when you're putting the extra corner on, they're still going to have 3 linebackers on the field, right? And they have the way you set the roster up in a 3-4, they have Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, who are both technically linebackers, but they're going to be edge rushing. They're also going to drop into coverage every now and then. And that's the thing that's tough about the 3-4 defense with multiple fronts, is that you can disguise so many things and you can surprise the offense in so many different ways with guys that you drop back, right? You'll have Josh Allen rushing off the edge 95% of the time. But then in that one crucial moment where you think he's for sure coming for the quarterback, he's going to fake in and then drop into the flat. You think you have an easy dump off, and then here comes Josh Allen intercepting the ball real quick, right? It's small things like that this defense is able to produce, especially because this is such a blitz-heavy scheme, right? Mike Caldwell, this is something I think when I think of Mike Caldwell's defense, it makes me think of Vic Fangio's defense. Vic Fangio's been at it a long time. His defenses work better. Generally, he also goes to places that have more talent than the Jacksonville Jaguars defense has. But this is a very attack style defense. As somebody who played defense, somebody like, if I was going to be a coach, I'd want to be a defensive coordinator. And this is what I do, like 3-4 attack style defense. Because, again, you can disguise things well with the different packages that you can run out of that scheme. And when you have an offense like the Colts offense, right, we talk about that offensive line, how they didn't do well last year, and we hope they do well this year. But this defense is going to expose any of the weaknesses in that offensive line because they're going to be attacking from different spots. And because when you're running that 3-4 scheme, there are going to be times when you see 5 guys in a 3-point stance on the line of scrimmage, right? And there's a real good chance that one of those edge guys is going to drop back, but you're going to have a corner or a linebacker coming in from somewhere else. So it's going to create a lot of matchup problems for the offensive line, which is why I've been saying all week that front, that the front for the Jaguars, it is going to cause problems for the Colts. That is the area of this game that I'm going to be watching the most, is the Jaguars defensive front against the Colts offensive line, because that's going to decide this game. right? Like if Anthony Richardson is, makes a mistake where he makes a bad pass because he's under pressure, like it's going to be because the Jaguars defense and what they do on defense is overwhelming that offensive line and getting to the quarterback. So it's going to be a good test. And it's going to be interesting to see who plays in this game. Right now, Will Fries is still currently questionable. And with the way that the depth chart is currently set up, Josh Sills is the backup guard for both the guard positions, and Wesley French is currently the backup center to Ryan Kelly. So if Will Fries isn't going, it looks like Josh Sills will be the guy that comes in. But for as worried as we've been about that right guard position, honestly, this is a game where I'm more worried about the left tackle and right tackle positions. Okay, because as I sit here and look at the depth chart for the Jaguars, Devon Hamilton is on the IR with a back issue, so he's not going to be there as the nose tackle for that 3-4 defense. And with that being the case, what we really have to worry about is the edge rushers on this team, right? Like in the middle, Ryan Kelly, Quentin Nelson, and whoever the right guard ends up being, they're going to have to deal with the blitzes coming through the middle. But, two of the three of those guys have been here for a long time. I think they'll be able to figure out what they're supposed to do. Right, and then you think about Evan Hull. Hopefully, in passing situations, we see Evan Hull in the game. Feel pretty good about him as a pass blocker. So in this game, we're really going to be focusing on Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, and Kayvon Chason to see where are these guys at. What are they getting to the quarterback? Right. I think Bernard Raymond, from everything I've heard all offseason long, from what we saw in the preseason, like I feel really good about Bernard Raymond. I'm not gonna lie. If you turn on the tape and go watch Bernard Raymond, just focus on Bernard Raymond through the preseason, like for the most part, excellent rep after excellent rep after excellent rep. Like he kind of dominated his position in the preseason. So I feel really good about him coming into the regular season. But you want to see it against premier guys like he's about to face here in week 1. So we'll see how he does. And then Braden Smith, obviously, he's been good in the past. Last couple of years, he's been slipping. Okay, he's healthy coming into week 1. We got to hope that Braden Smith can be Braden Smith again. We're going to need him to be Braden Smith again, right? Anthony Richardson's first NFL game. So, he's going to get nervous at times and he's going to take off anyways, but you don't want to have the quarterback taking off before he needs to, or making his mental process happen before it needs to when it's a rookie in his first game, because that's how mistakes happen. And at the end of the day, while we're all sitting here and we're like, oh, well, we could, lose a bunch of games this year, still have a little fun, and then we still get Marvin Harrison Jr. Like in the NFL, these guys can't waste time. These guys, right, like guys like DeForest Buckner, he's running out of time. These guys are trying to win championships right now. It is the job of everybody in that building to win games. So at the end of the day, how do these guys win this game? It's not turning the ball over. How do you minimize turnovers? You protect your quarterback, right? He can kind of protect himself. He's a big guy. He can escape. He's faster than most of the guys on the Jaguars defense. So he can get away from guys. But again, he needs to be protected. What we saw last year from the offensive line in the games with the Jaguars is not acceptable, and it can't happen again, right? The same thing happened 2021, the very last game of 2021, that 26-11 game where Carson Wentz and that offense didn't do anything in Jacksonville. It was because the defensive line overwhelmed the offensive line and they couldn't get anything done. So if there's going to be any success in this game for the Colts offense, it starts and ends with the offensive line being able to protect. Because when you start looking outside of that, I honestly think that this is a game where, as long as Anthony Richardson is able to have enough time to get the ball where he wants to put it, I think this Colts offense can exploit the Jaguars secondary. Especially, again, because it's a 3-4 defense, right? Like the Colts run a lot of nickel. And with that, you only have 2 linebackers and 3 corners on the field. So when you look at a 3-4 defense, what you get is a left end, right end, nose tackle. But then you have 2 linebackers on the ends that are basically your defensive ends. And then you have 2 more linebackers, right? And then you have the 2 corners and 2 safeties. But again, they have different packages, multiple fronts, so they can come out and look like a 4-3 or look like a 5-2 or look like a nickel. But because of the defensive scheme that they run and because it's an attack style defense, the Colts in this game could have the chance to put numbers in their favor for a majority of the game. They just have to be able to protect the quarterback, right? And honestly, in this game, I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts had a tough time running the ball against this defense, not just for the simple fact that Jonathan Taylor's not going to be there and, might just be Deion Jackson and Evan Hull, but I do think that because of the way this Jaguars defense is set up, because of the guys that they have in that front seven, and the safeties that they have, I think they'll be able to do a pretty good job of containing the run. But if you start looking at the individual matchups on the defense for the pass game, right, you're going to have Tyson Campbell, who's a good corner. He's going to be pretty much, I wouldn't be surprised if he's on Michael Pittman Jr. wherever he goes. And when you look back at last season, that game that the Colts won in Indianapolis, Michael Pittman had 13 catches for 134 yards. Like, he was the offense that day. He was the guy moving the chains. And that's going to be his role this year as a chain mover. But I think with the other matchups that they can exploit in this game, I think they're going to take those shots. And with the fact that Anthony Richardson can actually throw the ball to Alec Pierce 50 or 60 yards down the field, I think that's going to be able to happen because Alec Pierce on his side, he's going to see Darius Williams. Okay, and the first thing to note here is Darius Williams is 5'9". Okay, so there's a chance that they go ahead and have Darius Williams covering Josh Downs instead, and then they put Trey Hendon, who's currently the third corner on the depth chart, on Alec Pierce. But if they do that, Trey Hendon's only 5'11" too, so it's not like Alec Pierce is like 6'4". So it doesn't really matter from that regard. He's going to be able to go up and get the ball, and he has the speed to blow by guys. Okay, when you look at both Darius Williams and Trey Hendon, neither of these guys from being a turnover guy, like getting interceptions, don't really have to worry about that. These guys, I'll look back at the stats from years past for each of these guys. Darius Williams has been with the Rams for a few years, and neither of these guys are guys that rack up interceptions or rack up passes defended. Whereas Tyson Campbell, he is the guy that gets interceptions. I believe he had 10 passes defended just last season, which is why I really like the matchup of Alec Pierce and Josh Downs against the combination of Darius Williams and Trey Hendon. Right? If you look at the safeties on the Jaguars defense, pretty good duo here. Like Rayshawn Jenkins, I've been a fan of him for a while. I wouldn't sit here and say that, he's a, top 5 or top 10 guy, but he's solid. He's somebody who's good in the run game. He's opportunistic. He forces fumbles. He gets interceptions. Like he's a good safety to have. And Andre Cisco, also a guy that stays opportunistic. This isn't one of the best duos in the league, but they're a solid backfield for that Jacksonville defense. So the exploitive part of this defense is going to be the cornerback position. So in this game, I think what's likely is that Alec Pierce catches at least one deep bomb, probably for a touchdown, blows by his guy and gets a touchdown. And I think Josh Downs, maybe even Kylen Granson, but I think Josh Downs is going to have more success in this game, especially being his first NFL game. The rapport that he has with Anthony Richardson, I think that's going to be a comfort spot. And I think Josh Downs, his role in this offense is going to be the chain mover. So I expect Josh Downs, he might have a low yards per catch, but I think Josh Downs is going to have a good game here. I wouldn't be surprised if he got in the end zone once or twice. Because when you look at that slot position, yeah, they could have a slot corner on, but in this defense, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to get Josh Downs in a matchup with a linebacker. And the way he's already able to separate, the elite receivers know how to create natural separation anyways and get away from guys. Josh Downs is able to do that. So he already has that ability even as a rookie. But also he has the speed to get away from linebackers, of course. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity in this game for Josh Downs to get the ball in his hands and to make plays, and more so than Kylen Granson, because Kylen Granson is very athletic for his size, very athletic for a tight end. But in this defense, they have Foyesete Oluokun. And if you don't know who that is, he played for the Falcons for a little while. He's a linebacker and a very, very good linebacker. Okay, his last season with the Falcons, he had 192 total tackles. His first season with the Jaguars last year in this defense, he had 184 total tackles. Okay, he is a very good linebacker, doesn't get talked about a lot. because he was on the Falcons when they were trash, and then he was on the Jaguars last year, who never get national publicity. So you might not have heard of him, but he's a problem, and he's going to disrupt things. He's a big reason why I think the Colts are going to struggle to run the ball in this game. He's a big reason why the Colts struggled to run the ball last year against Jacksonville. So he could disrupt things for Kylen Granson. So if you're thinking about starting him in fantasy football, you might think otherwise in this game. I think Granson's going to be a part of the offense, but not a major part of the offense. I think what's really going to happen is Alec Pierce, Josh Downs are going to come out and kind of put the league on notice of what they can do in the NFL. Okay, now with that said, what I do think, and of course, turnovers decide football games, but one of the biggest deciding factors in this game is going to be third down. Okay, when you look at last year, and again, teams change, right? We expect this Colts offense to be better than what we saw last year because last year was absolutely terrible. But the Colts' third down percentage last season was 29th in the NFL at 32.89%. And the Jaguars' defense, their opponent third down conversion for the defense was 43.78%, which was 29th in the NFL. So the question coming into this game, of course, who can minimize turnovers, but also who's going to convert the third downs? Are the Colts going to be better at it? Or are the Jags going to get better from the defensive side of the ball at stopping people on third down? Okay, that there is going to be added to the list of keys to win the game. Okay, it's always turnovers. This game in particular, winning the third down battle is going to matter. Okay, Jacksonville is expected to win this division, so it's expected that they're just going to win that battle. If the Colts can win the turnover battle, if the Colts can win the third down conversion battle, there's a chance they come in and upset. Okay, we are currently 5-point dogs at home. That is massively disrespectful. I don't care what you say. Jaguars don't win in Indianapolis just as much as the Colts don't win in Jacksonville. The Jags don't win in Indianapolis. It doesn't happen. Okay, being 5-point dogs at home is disrespectful. The Colts need to find a way to get the job done this Sunday, okay? Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you can get notified when I drop the video going over the Colts defense and the Jaguars offense tomorrow. And until then, as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.